Wow. Well, what can we say? I have this amazing tweet here from the official 007 First Light account. I'm just going to read it out. We are providing today an update to the PC system specifications for 007 First Light after the community flagged some inconsistencies in an earlier version of the listing. The earlier mistake was due to an internal miscommunication, leading to an older version of the specs to be shared. After a thorough re-examination and additional testing, the recommended RAM has been corrected from 32 gigabytes to 16 gigabytes. VRAM values have been updated, and the minimum CPU line has been fixed. Additional performance targets will be shared closer to launch. We're sorry for the confusion this caused and appreciate everyone who brought it to our attention. The updated specs are now live on our store pages, and we're looking forward to sharing more of 007 First Light with you ahead of launch. So, yeah, basically, if we go back to the original version of these specifications, essentially, yes, 32 gigabytes of system RAM was required, and the recommended spec required 12 gigabytes of VRAM. That's been changed down to 8 gigabytes here. Even so, Alex, these specifications are kind of weird still, right?
Yeah, I'd say they're still a little bit weird because or what it says maybe about the console version is also interesting because the 60 FPS requirement and the CPU they're throwing out there, the Ryzen 5 7600 and i5 13500 are a lot more powerful to get like CPUs than what you see in the console. Like if you were to do like the games that we have that are notably CPU limited, like Baldur's Gate 3 and whatnot, or just, you know, many of the titles that we can find that are CPU limited, when Rich does his little tests, you can often see that these type of CPUs are quite a bit more powerful than what you get on the console. So it makes me a little wonder and worry if the game is going to be a great 60 FPS on console, or if it's going to maybe be one of those games with the rocky 60 FPS. Then you kind of look at the GPUs, and you know, these are much more reasonable. I would say they are actually within that console ballpark that you would usually expect. You know, that 2080 Super, 2070 Super range, 4060, etc. That's right about there. I'm still though not exactly sure what brought about the original specs release. Not because they reduced down the amount of VRAM with additional testing. That isn't it. Maybe those were older in the sense that they expected a different VRAM target, but it was just mainly the misalignment of the GPUs that they had listed there for the video RAM amount. Like usually you would couple those two together, because otherwise it doesn't make sense how 1080p at 60 FPS requires in the original specs 12 gigabytes of VRAM and a 3060 Ti, right? A GPU that never had 12 gigabytes of VRAM to my knowledge, or the minimum spec requiring 8 gigs at that point in time, but a 1660 definitely not having 8 gigs. And you know, the fact that the CPUs didn't really exist in the form that they were listed there, I have a feeling it was kind of like thrown together without maybe they looked at the core amounts, but they didn't actually look at the real existing products that line up with those things, which we've seen multiple times in the past. Actually, in general, I would say never really trust PC specs that are released until people have been playing and testing the game and can actually give you a better appreciation of it, because even these right here are still not very descriptive. They say 1080p 60 FPS. They do not say what settings that is running at. They don't say, you know, it could mean anything. It could be low settings at 1080p 60 FPS. So you load up the game the first time, you think, oh, I'm going to get 60 FPS. And you crank it to ultra. And even at 1080p native, you're getting like 22 FPS. It's contextless performance, right? So they need to offer much more context to this performance with settings labels and whatnot, and other studios do this better. So I think there are examples out there that they could follow. They also say 80 gigabyte minimum here for the storage. Can I throw a 5400 RPM hard drive in there? Like, you know, these are not descriptive enough, in my humble opinion. So I think you need a lot more to give people great information about what they should expect from a game's performance.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, looking at the GPUs there, I mean, I just like the way. Well, first of all, I'm pretty sure the 1660 isn't really in a class that's comparable with the RX 5700.
It shouldn't be, but maybe mesh shaders,
Maybe,
who knows, right?
and they just don't bother to list Intel equivalent GPUs. They just put Intel discrete GPU equivalent. It's like you go away and work it out for yourself if you've got an Intel GPU. It just doesn't really quite make sense. So yes, very, very bizarre. The whole thing is all a bit weird. Good to see at least though that those onerous system memory and VRAM requirements have now gone down, but still very, very strange all around. You can't help but think that maybe at this point in development they should have a better idea of how this game scales across the board rather than the kind of nondescript stuff that we got here. Yeah, kind of strange. The 60 FPS thing, it does say recommended PC hardware requirements, so I doubt they're going to be recommending that if for a low settings experience.
I don't know.
But what settings is it? We don't know. What is the recommended settings? That's kind of bizarre as well. John, are you left any more the wiser with this clarification?
I'm very curious how this is going to end up running in the end, to be honest, because we saw this running on a PC at Gamescom, and it was pretty heavy, if you recall. Still very much in development, right? And then later on, they showed the PS5 Pro version in a broadcast at 30 FPS with dips below. But then you also see that the PS5 Pro version is apparently going to be running quality settings of the PS5, but at 60 FPS. So clearly they're targeting something above what they were showing. So I'm curious to see how far the game will come in that like sort of a little over half a year period. I also was wondering, do you think 007 himself wrote these specs?
I don't think so.
Hashtag earn the number. I don't know. No, it's I want one of those fake Intel CPUs though, I gotta say.
You're searching. You can get an AliExpress version of that.
Get an AliExpress version or a Wish.com version of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. The thing is, there aren't that many Intel GPUs out there. I mean, I guess you would just put B580 for recommended PC specs.
You really would.
Kind of there, I think.
Yeah.
Just put the B580. It's not difficult. And I guess basically anything from A750 up would be okay for the minimum PC spec there. But again, what's the mystery there?
I will just say it's weird seeing on any like modern spec sheet list like this for PC games listing 1080p as a target and then a maximum of 60 FPS. I mean,
well, they are saying that they're going to produce a more detailed spec.
I'm sure it's just dropping 1080p on a sheet in 2026 feels woefully outdated.
There's still a lot of 1080p screens out there, but certainly
it just feels like 1080p was like, when you look at the history of discussion around 1080p, it goes back 20 years.
Yeah, it is interesting that we're still there.
And we're still talking about it. It's like, so, yeah.